Welcome to Random I Am with Missy Clark. This is my latest episode, and this one is going to be about flax culture, tradition, and myths. And I welcome you, and please, if you like me, if you want to subscribe so you get notifications for later, please do that also. And now I will begin. Very, very long ago, when early man realized that wearing skins of other animals was not only difficult to achieve because you have to catch said animal and then you want to butcher it for its food, then you have to preserve its skins and then fashion them into something to put over your body. Well, that's a lot of work, and wearing skins is not the most comfortable way to go, especially if there's any humidity. Granted, it will keep you warm. But as time went on, men figured out that they could take animal fibers, not just their skins, but the animal fibers, and they could take plant fibers and process them into a fabric that they could turn into clothing. It took a while for all of that to happen, but on the road to it happening, we have flax, cotton, silk, wool, hemp, and there are some other fibers that we're not even going to go into because all I'm going to be talking about on this one is about flax. It's about 3 feet tall and has a lovely little tiny blue flower on it. Once all of the flax has gone to seed, then it is harvested. The flax plants are pulled right out of the ground, roots and all, by the handful, and then they are laid down on the ground and covered with a tarp, or they are put into a pond with a little bit of moving water and covered with rocks so that the plant will actually rot a little bit. This process is called retting. All right, so once the plants are all rotted, now it takes quite a bit. I planted an acre of flax once, which is more than one person can really manage. I'd say 1/4 of an acre for a family is probably good for a year. So take the flax, you've pulled it from the ground and you've retted it, and then it needs to dry. Once it's completely dry, then all the processes can begin. The very first process will be breaking the flax with a flax break. This tool, it looks like a big sawhorse with a handle on it, and it actually crimps the fibers. So the flax is put between the jaws of this and it's pounded. And that pounding breaks the shaft from the outside. And then you do that repeatedly to break the crusty part off of the outside of each of the flax plants, because look at it this way, each plant is like three blades of grass with a stem in the middle of it. That's simplistic, but it's that small, but it is about 3 feet long, and the fiber that you're going to be using is on the inside. So you use the flax break and you repeatedly break the shaft off the outside of the flax, and as you do this, it comes to look more and more like there might be hair in there. Once that it's mostly all broken and all that little hay is broken off the outside of the flax plants, then it is done with a scutching knife. And this is a great big wooden knife, about this long, made of oak, and you hold the bundle of flax fibers in your hand and you scrape them and whap at them with this big wooden knife, with the scutching knife. After doing that repeatedly, then you run the big piece of flax through several heckles. These look like boards with nails pounded through them, and it starts with nails that are far apart, like about 1/2 inch apart, and then skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. And this rakes and combs the flax fibers. Once the flax fibers have been all smoothed out nicely, they're tied around at the top, at the flower end. You can still tell which was the flower end. And then the long string that's holding them together is laid out on a table. and the flax fibers are fanned out like a big fan. And it really does look like a girl's hair. You've all heard the expression tow-headed. Well, that comes from tow, which is the byproduct of flax. So tow-headed is like blonde, and so is flax. So all the flax is fanned out, and then a distaff, which is this tool right here. This is a distaff, and as you can see, it's just a branch that was tied up together, and it makes sort of a basket type of arrangement. The flax fibers are wound onto this distaff in an organized manner so that it looks like this. Now this distaff here is about maybe 280 years old. It came, I believe, it came from Europe, and it's really, really a fine piece. There is some knife work down in the bottom that was decorative. Obviously, this was made for somebody, by somebody that loved them. All right, so the distaff is a big part of the culture. So once the flax is all wound onto this, then it can be spun. The distaff is just a tool for holding the flax, but it has come to symbolize the female part of life. You've sometimes heard of the distaff side of life. Well, this is a distaff. It was such a popular and necessary tool of early times that there was a holiday called St. Distaff's Day, which was the 7th of January. That's the day after Epiphany. That's the first day after the Christmas celebrations, or whatever your winter thing is. That's the day the women would go back to their normal household chores, and they would then begin to weave. And that was called St. Distaff's Day. Oh, and there was all sorts of hijinks that would go on that day, because plow day for the men is several days after St. Distaff's Day. And so there was all sorts of hijinks of burning the flax and stealing aprons and doing all sorts of playful things. I think Bruegel has a very interesting painting of just that St. Distaff's Day celebration. And here is Perchta. With every tradition comes some myth and a little bit of lore. Perchta. Some say she was Odin's wife. Some say she was Krampus's mother. Here's what I've been able to figure out. During the holiday season, no matter what your holiday is, women are always busy preparing to entertain. Whether your home is a sadi or a log cabin or a cave, people prepare for gatherings. It's what people do. And this time of year is a busy time. And so the women would stop their spinning chores and get ready for the holidays, knowing that on St. Distaff's Day, or after the 12th night of Christmas, or after Epiphany, if you believe that way, is the day that women would go back to their household chores. And at this time, it would be weaving, not spinning. So it was expected that all the women and girls had their spinning done before the solstice. And that would begin, and then Christmas would come, and that would start the first day of Christmas all the way to the 12th day of Christmas. And Perchta would walk around and make sure that there was no flax on the distaffs, no spinning on the spinning wheels, that everything was finished and ready to go. She'd march through town and she would look at all the girls' spinning wheels, making sure, because it is said that if there was any flax on the distaff after the time that it was supposed to be off, if there was any spinning left on the wheel undone, well, then there was punishments. They'd say, oh, Perchta would come and she'd slice open your belly with a great big knife and stuff it full of straw. Well, a little bit of myth busting here. Remember when we were preparing the flax and putting it through the flax break and breaking the chaff off the outside? Well, that's the hay, or that's the straw from the flax that would be supposedly stuffed into the spinster's belly. And that big knife, well, my goodness, that was the wooden scutching knife. So behind every bit of lore, there's a bit of truth or a thread that runs through. Is this very much different than Elf on a Shelf? Or perhaps the elves are watching, you better be good. If you're not good, you'll get coal in your stocking. There's always been threats to incite good behavior. And this is another one of those. So Perchta, wearing her all white because it was undyed, she's wearing all white, and she would go around with her distaff. Now this is symbolic, obviously. There's some white wool wrapped on this, and she would walk around town so people would know she was coming. They'd hear her walking around, and people would know that they needed to have their things in order. Now this tradition is from the Alpine and in Germany, and well, it wouldn't have always been called Germany. It was the Holy Roman Empire. It was somebody else, Central Europe, early on. But Perchta is from that tradition, and she would be known as Frau Perchta, sometimes the Christmas witch, and she is very prevalent in that tradition. So I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and by the way, a Happy Hogmanay, which is going to be New Year's Day. Thank you so much for joining me today for this little bit of whimsy and history and flax culture. And don't forget, like if you did, subscribe if you will, and mention me sometime. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.